Picture this. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a totally normal day.
Right. The kind of day where nothing happened.
Exactly. You, the ever-curious learner tuning in today, you're just standing outside, maybe taking a break, looking out over your yard.
Just minding your own business.
Yeah. And then, without any warning whatsoever, you look up and see an 8-foot-wide, glowing red metal ring screaming down from the sky.
Oh, wow.
And it violently crashes into the dirt just meters away from where you're standing. I mean, there's no warning siren.
No.
There's no breaking news alert buzzing on your phone. Just a deafening, thunderous bang, a massive impact crater, and then silence.
It sounds like the inciting incident of the summer blockbuster, honestly. The kind of scene designed to get the audience to lean forward in their seats before the title sequence even rolls.
Yeah, but welcome to today's deep dive, because we are looking at a situation that is 100% real.
Completely real.
Our mission today is to head to a specific day, December 30th, 2024, in a village in Kenya. We're going to figure out exactly what happens when the sky literally falls.
Literally.
And we are going to explore the startling, honestly, kind of terrifying reality of modern space debris.
Grounding ourselves in the reality of this event is crucial, because while this absolutely sounds like fiction, it is a fully documented historical event.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it exposes massive, glaring gaps in global accountability when it comes to the thousands of objects currently orbiting right above our heads.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to move from the abstract idea of space debris down to the very real dirt roads of Mukuku village on that fateful December afternoon.
Mukuku is a quiet, small village in southern Kenya.
Right, surrounded by farmland. People are just going about their daily lives. We have a man named Joseph Mutua, and he is outside simply watching over his cow.
A completely mundane, peaceful setting.
Yeah, and then he hears it. A bang so loud that it literally freezes him in his tracks.
I can't even imagine.
His first instinct, which, makes total sense, was to look up for smoke or maybe see if it was a rogue lightning strike. But the sky is totally clear.
Right, no storm clouds.
So he runs to the roadside, assuming a terrible car crash just happened. But he gets there, and the road is completely empty.
The immediate confusion that follows an event like this is intense.
I bet.
You have a massive auditory shockwave, but no visual context for what caused it. People in the village start screaming. They run toward the edge of the community into a nearby thicket of trees, trying to locate the source of the impact.
And what they find sitting in that thicket is just mind-boggling. It's this massive metal ring, like I said, 8 feet wide.
Huge.
And it is glowing red hot. It is literally still steaming when the first villagers gather around it. This object weighed 500 kilograms.
That's half a ton.
Yeah. To put that into perspective, that is the equivalent of a full-grown grand piano falling from orbit and landing in your backyard.
Consider the physics of what we are talking about here, too. For an object to still be glowing red hot when it hits the ground, it has just survived a brutal journey.
Oh, for sure.
When something falls out of orbit, it is moving at roughly 17,500 miles per hour.
Wait, 17,000 miles per hour?
Exactly. And as it hits the Earth's atmosphere, it doesn't just experience friction.
Okay.
It compresses the air in front of it so violently that the air turns into superheated plasma.
Whoa.
Yeah, that plasma shockwave is what heats the metal to the point of glowing.
Which brings up a really obvious question, I think. If this thing went through a superheated plasma shockwave, why didn't it just burn up?
That's what most people wonder.
Because I always thought the atmosphere was supposed to act like a giant incinerator that protects us from this kind of debris.
Well, that is the intention, but it depends entirely on the design and material of the object.
Okay.
This particular piece was later identified by the Kenya Space Agency as a rocket separation ring.
A separation ring.
Right. These rings are structural collars used to connect different stages of a rocket. Because they have to withstand the immense forces of a rocket launch, they are often made of incredibly dense, heat-resistant alloys like titanium.
Ah, titanium.
Yeah. So while fragile components like, say, solar panels or thin aluminum hulls will easily vaporize during re-entry, a dense 500-kilogram ring of titanium will often just punch right through the atmosphere and make it to the surface intact.
So you have this dense, steaming 500-kilogram metal ring sitting in a thicket, and the villagers have no framework for what they're looking at.
Not at all.
Was it a bomb? Was it military tech? The immediate reality for them wasn't scientific curiosity.
No, it was a physical threat.
Exactly. In fact, some residents actually started feeling unwell after getting close to it. The elders in the village had to start pulling the children back and telling everyone to stay away from the crater.
And that primal survival response is entirely justified.
Oh, absolutely.
When you have an unidentified object off-gassing unknown fumes after burning through the atmosphere, keeping a safe distance is the only rational move. You don't know what kind of chemical propellants might be baked into the metal or what kind of materials are currently smoldering.
Well, eventually, the authorities do show up. The Kenya Space Agency arrives, they secure the scene, and they start running tests on the object.
Right.
And when they run the radiation tests, they find something pretty chilling.
Yeah, this part is alarming.
The radiation levels near the debris were measurably higher than the surrounding area.
That completely elevates the situation. It shifts the event from a kinetic impact, hazard-like, just dodging a heavy falling object, to an invisible environmental hazard.
But then the official statement comes out. The officials tell the public that the radiation is not immediately threatening.
Right.
I have to pause there because the sheer absurdity of that phrasing is wild.
It's very bureaucratic.
You are talking to a villager, a parent whose kids just breathed in the fumes coming off a radioactive space object, and the reassurance is that the threat isn't immediate.
What's fascinating here is the massive disparity between bureaucratic risk assessment and human reality.
Yeah, exactly.
From a clinical scientific standpoint, not immediately threatening just means the radiation levels aren't high enough to cause acute radiation sickness.
Like you won't drop dead right there.
Exactly. Nobody is going to collapse on the spot, but that phrasing completely glosses over the concept of chronic exposure.
Right.
If the radiation is elevated, what does that mean for the soil? What does it mean for the long-term cellular health of the people who stood next to it while it was off-gassing?
It honestly feels like a brush off. The villagers were essentially left in the dark.
Complete.
There were no medical follow-ups. There was no long-term monitoring of the people who felt unwell. No soil remediation teams dispatched to check the farmland.
None of that.
And no real answers provided about what long-term exposure to those specific radiation levels might mean for them.
And that lack of follow-up highlights a deeper systemic issue. When an anomaly like this happens in a major urban center, you usually see a massive coordinated emergency response.
Right. News crews, hazmat suits.
Exactly. But when it happens in a rural agricultural village, the response often stops the moment the immediate panic is quelled.
So if the local agency is just telling people not to worry and the villagers are left with a mildly radioactive crater, surely international law mandates that the people who launched this thing have to come clean up their mess, right?
The legal framework certainly exists. We have international agreements, most notably the 1972 Space Liability Convention.
Okay.
The core tenet of international space law is very clear. The launching state is absolutely liable to pay compensation for damage caused by its space object on the surface of the Earth.
So they have to pay.
Yes. Liability is permanently tied to the origin. If your country or a company operating from your country puts an object into orbit, you are financially and legally responsible for wherever it comes down.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You have this ironclad rule. You launch it, you own the damage.
Right.
So someone out there, some massive tech company, some wealthy nation, space agency, owns this 500-kilogram grand piano that crashed into Mukuku.
They absolutely do.
But the twist is that as of 2025, nobody has officially claimed it. Not a single country, not a single company, just total deafening silence.
It is a stunning evasion of responsibility. And to understand why a country would choose to ignore a half-ton piece of evidence, you have to look at the loopholes in the geopolitics of space law.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, claiming a piece of debris is a PR nightmare, certainly. But it also opens a Pandora's box of liability. If a nation raises its hand and says, yes, that's our separation ring, they are instantly on the hook for potential environmental cleanup, medical monitoring, and diplomatic apologies.
Plus, I imagine there is a massive level of secrecy involved, right?
Oh, definitely.
If a government admits that a specific piece of hardware is theirs, aren't they basically revealing their orbital capabilities or maybe even admitting that a highly classified military satellite just failed?
That is exactly the unspoken variable. Space is heavily militarized. A lot of what goes up is classified.
Right.
If a classified asset breaks apart or a launch vehicle malfunctions, the last thing a Defense Department wants to do is hand over the metallurgical composition and engineering specs of their hardware to an international investigation team.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. It is far easier politically and strategically to simply say nothing and let the object become an orphan.
But wait, how can an object just become an orphan? I mean, we have massive space agencies with billions of dollars of equipment.
We do.
The Kenya Space Agency called this a rocket separation ring, but a space tracking expert from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics looked at the debris and said he couldn't connect it to any obvious space object.
That's right.
In fact, he wasn't even fully convinced it came from a rocket at all. How is there that much of a disconnect?
It's complicated.
How can one of the top tracking experts in the world essentially shrug his shoulders at a 500-kilogram piece of metal?
It points to a huge misconception about how we track objects in space. We tend to think of space tracking like air traffic control, where every object has a transponder pinging its exact location and identity at all times.
Right, like an airplane on a radar.
Exactly. But in reality, space situational awareness relies heavily on ground-based phased array radars and optical telescopes.
Yeah.
They scan the sky and track the orbits of known objects.
So they're essentially watching dots move across a screen and predicting where they will go based on orbital mechanics.
Precisely. But when a rocket stage explodes or a dead satellite breaks apart unpredictably, it creates a cloud of shrapnel.
Oh, so it shatters.
Yeah, and those pieces enter what is essentially a blind spot. Furthermore, as an object begins to fall into the atmosphere, its trajectory becomes incredibly chaotic. Things like solar flares can cause the Earth's atmosphere to swell, changing the aerodynamic drag on a falling object.
Oh, wow. So a solar flare happens, the atmosphere puffs out a little bit, and suddenly this piece of debris hits thicker air sooner than expected.
Yeah.
Just throwing the entire re-entry calculation out the window.
Exactly. And on top of that, when an object is plummeting through the atmosphere, engulfed in that superheated plasma shockwave we talked about earlier.
The glowing red part.
Right. That plasma actually blocks radar signals.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's called a plasma blackout. So the tracking systems literally lose sight of the object during the most critical part of its descent.
That is wild.
By the time it hits the ground in a place like Mukuku, it is just a charred, mangled piece of slag. If its crash time and location don't perfectly align with a previously tracked expected re-entry window, connecting the physical debris to a specific launch registry becomes a massive forensic puzzle.
And when the global scientific community can't provide an immediate, definitive answer, that creates a massive information vacuum.
And we know exactly what happens when there's an information vacuum in the modern era.
Yep.
Social media steps in to fill it.
Oh, it was instant chaos because there was no official claimant. The geopolitical finger-pointing just erupted online.
It really did.
India, for example, was heavily accused by online sleuths of being the culprit, which the Indian government flatly denied. Then the rumors started swirling in the other direction. Claims went incredibly viral that Kenya was demanding $100 billion in compensation from the mystery owner.
$100 billion is a completely fabricated number.
Completely made up.
But the algorithm doesn't care about accuracy. It cares about engagement. The noise became so overwhelming that the Kenya Space Agency actually had to divert their attention away from the scientific investigation.
Wow.
They were forced to issue a second official statement solely to quell the misinformation and calm the geopolitical rumors.
All because the actual owner refused to just raise their hand, absorb the embarrassment, and take responsibility.
Exactly. And while governments argued over rumors and social media algorithms spun out of control, the physical reality remained.
Yeah.
The causal chain ends with that 500-kilogram object sitting in a government building somewhere in Nairobi, unclaimed, gathering dust.
Hearing about a half-ton ring going completely unclaimed makes me wonder if this is just a freak accident or if things are slipping through the cracks more often than we realize.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes very clear that Mukuku is not an anomaly.
It's not.
No, it is part of a clear escalating pattern. Look at the timeline of recent incidents. In May 2023, space debris landed in Uganda, and it didn't just hit a field.
Oh, man.
It pierced the roof of a person's house.
Which means it easily could have killed someone sitting in their living room.
Yes. Then, jump to March 2024. A piece of debris from the International Space Station itself crashed straight through a family home in Florida.
The ISS. The most heavily monitored, heavily funded, famous object in the sky.
The very same.
If they can't even predict where their own trash is going to land, what hope do we have for some defunct military satellite?
It is a sobering thought, and it goes further. Just a month after the Florida incident, in April 2024, scorched space junk was found crashed onto a farm in Canada.
It is happening everywhere. And this brings up what is arguably the most staggering stop you in your tracks fact from all of this.
Yeah, this is a big one.
According to NASA, a piece of orbital debris falls to Earth about once a day.
That's right.
I want to repeat that for everyone listening, just so it sinks in. Once a day.
It completely shatters the illusion we have of the sky. We tend to view space as this infinite, pristine void.
Sure, just empty space.
But low Earth orbit, where most of these satellites and rockets operate, is incredibly congested. It is essentially a high-speed, crowded highway feed with weather monitors, communication arrays, internet satellite constellations, and decades worth of discarded rocket bodies.
Just flying around up there.
Right. And the fundamental rule of orbital mechanics is that gravity always wins eventually. Unless an object is pushed into a much higher graveyard orbit, atmospheric drag will eventually pull it back down.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, just going about your normal day?
It's a valid question.
There is a really poignant, almost heartbreaking observation to be made here. When these massive objects fall out of the sky and land in the ocean or in an uninhabited desert, it is just a blip on a radar screen.
Nobody notices.
Nobody cares. But when they land in a quiet small village, a place where the people don't have teams of high-powered lawyers on retainer, where they don't have massive emergency funds to deal with radioactive soil, or the political connections to force the issue onto the floor of the United Nations, the world simply looks away. The story fades.
It is a profound failure of global empathy and legal enforcement.
Absolutely.
The international systems we have in place are theoretically designed to protect everyone, but in practice, the vulnerable are left to deal with the fallout alone.
Yeah.
The fact that an object falls once a day means the statistical probability of debris hitting populated areas is only increasing. We are launching more rockets now than at any point in human history.
Let's summarize the core journey of today's deep dive. We started with a completely normal afternoon on December 30th, 2024.
A quiet day in Mukuku.
Suddenly, a 500-kilogram glowing metal ring falls from orbit and violently impacts a Kenyan village. We saw villagers exposed to higher than normal radiation, followed by an absolute void of medical follow-up or environmental care.
All dismissed with the phrase not immediately threatening.
Exactly. We watched the global community completely duck the responsibilities clearly laid out by the 1972 Space Liability Convention.
Yep.
And we were left with top tracking experts doubting what the object even is, while social media tore itself apart with wild billion-dollar rumors.
And at the center of all that noise, all the orbital mechanics and international legal maneuvering, is the human element.
Right.
That massive ring is currently just sitting in a building in Nairobi. And Joseph Mutua, along with all the people of Mukuku, they just had to go back to their normal lives.
Like nothing happened.
They went back to tending their farms, watching their children, acting as if the sky hadn't literally fallen on them. They were left to carry the psychological and potentially physical burden entirely on their own, without a single apology from the people who put that object in the sky.
It is a heavy reality to sit with. If this happened in your yard, what would you do?
It's a tough question.
Would your government step up and aggressively seek out the culprit to help you? Would the rest of the world actually care? Or would you, like the people of Mukuku, just become another isolated story that the world quickly forgets?
Those are the critical questions we all need to be asking. As the commercial and military space industry continues to rapidly expand, accountability cannot just be an optional courtesy.
Right.
It has to be an absolute requirement.
Absolutely. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on everything we've explored today. If a massive 8-foot, 500-kilogram glowing metal ring can violently crash into our planet, and the nation or company that built it can simply choose to remain completely silent just to avoid a payout or a PR hit, what does that mean for the thousands of pieces of human-made metal currently orbiting right over your head right now, just waiting for gravity to do its job? Who is really watching the sky?
That is the question, isn't it?
Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the world around you, and we will see you next time.